So much information about training anchors your work to zones. The problem is, it feels like almost every coach on the interwebs is using a different model when they talk about zones. They're all trying to accomplish the same thing: maximize human performance and fitness by creating experiences that stress your system in a way that will elicit specific, desired physiological, mechanical, and psychological adaptations. Purpose aside, the actual process of choosing to find zones from all the possible models is really confusing. If we follow one book, we can find dozens of other books that say very different things. If we use Training Peaks, we have 9 zone models from which to choose on the bike, or we can make our own custom ones. How do we choose to find training zones? Training zone models vary in number, range, and focus, but all of them are based in exercise science and exercise physiology. Great, thanks, super helpful, right? How about this? Zones. We know them when we see them. We can look at a picture like this and we see that the athlete's effort is pretty chill. Is effort meaningful regarding training zones? Heck yeah. Effort or exertion, or rate of perceived exertion, RPE, integrates the physiological experience the athlete's having along with what their psychological interpretation of that experience is for them. RPE and effort are one way to define zones, and when we watch someone working, we can get a sense of their efforts, like here, chill. This was shot at an indoor time trial race, and this is the point where the athletes are taken a few minutes after their warm-up, but before the start of their race. RPE is low, and under the skin at this low intensity, athletes are predominantly burning fat as fuel using oxygen, and they're able to process any byproducts easily without any limitations in resource availability. Once the race is started, RPE starts increasing, but it's not maxed out. More carbohydrates being consumed, more lactates accumulating in the blood, heart rate and breathing rates are increasing, and they're starting to sweat. Muscle fibers are able to meet the demand with some effort, but they're not near their fatigue or force limits. Late in the race, near the end, force is high, effort is high, fatigue in the muscles is notable, glycogen demand is high, lactate production is above what the body can process easily, and it's accumulating in the blood quickly. RPE is at about wow, and heart rate's high, breathing's raggedy, and performance is a struggle. Both failure and the end of the race are both imminent, just a matter of which one gets there first. If we overlay the same pictures onto a graph of relative contributions of fat and carbohydrate, we get a picture of substrate utilization in relation to effort, also in relation to the percentage of maximal oxygen uptake that we'd also call VO2 max. Now, remember, training zones are intensity regions that correspond to physiological processes happening inside the body, and substrate utilization drives lactate production levels. VO2 max drives lactate processing capacity. Lactate processing capacity at any given level of output can be measured, and the points where lactate accumulation ticks up notably is what defines many zone models. So we have that warm-up chill stretch, a little more effort as the start of the race, and then pretty much maximal or off-the-charts effort comes towards the end of that indoor time trial race. When we talk about lactate, lactate is measured in millimoles per liter. And if you were to have your blood tested right now as you sit there listening to me speak, you'd probably be hovering just above or just below 1 millimole per liter. Even at a very slow pace or power and a chill RPE, you're going to use more fast twitch muscle fiber than when you're sedentary. And with that, you're going to use more glycogen. That curve is going to start to tick up, and that first defining point of notable change is anchored typically at 2 millimoles per liter of lactate, or the aerobic threshold. As the pace, power, and RPE continue to increase, up until about 4 millimoles per liter, the body can manage to keep things from getting away, at least for a while, and until at least the muscle fibers start to fatigue the brain starts to reach its current limits of tolerance, or until the availability of fuel and transporters or the enzymes necessary to process that fuel can't be supplied. And lactate starts to accumulate in the blood, too fast for the body to process. After this point, lactate will increase exponentially until you choose to stop, or until the body stops you without that choice. In a single sentence, exercise intensity positively correlates with an increase in blood lactate, and there are 2 points where lactate starts to significantly increase. You probably noticed it says pyruvate in these spots, not lactate. It's not because, how we were taught back in the day that lactate's bad. Pyruvate precedes lactate when glycogen is burned. Pyruvate's the molecule that may or may not become lactate. What you're looking at here at the top is the process of getting stored glucose out of the liver and into the blood for use during exercise, gluconeogenesis, or the new creation of glucose from stored glycogen. We also have a small amount of glycogen stored in our muscle tissue, and we use it at the site of the working muscles. Either way, when we have a need to supplement with carbohydrate, our faster, more forceful energy source, we process glucose through glycolysis and are left with energy in the form of ATP and byproduct of pyruvate. Pyruvate can go one of 2 routes. It can be sent into a second round of energy processing, this here you see in the middle, an oxygen-using pathway, and actually it's the same pathway that fat is processed through. It's incredibly efficient, and this process favors pyruvate over fat if pyruvate's available. And you can see here, converts to acetyl-CoA, gets further processed within the mitochondria, the slow twitch muscles, and that provides us with a massive amount of energy for movement. But there's a limit on the processing capacity here, so some pyruvate doesn't make it in. That pyruvate's converted to lactate, the same lactate we can measure in our blood. The intensity of our efforts and our endurance fitness adaptations, or the quality of our endurance fitness adaptations, determine how much lactate's accumulating and how much pyruvate's getting processed. When it stops increasing linearly and starts accumulating exponentially, that's when our work time becomes limited, just like we saw before. That tipping point where the lactate stops being steady and starts climbing fast is what anchors most current zone models, with the exception of heart rate zones. If we take a look here, we're again going to remember training zones are intensity regions corresponding to physiological processes. The primary process of concern being this, substrate utilization, or the contributions of fat and carbohydrate to energy expenditure. It's benchmarked using lactate, and that lactate's used to set LT1, or the aerobic threshold, the lower one, and LT2, the anaerobic threshold, after which that lactate accumulation is less steady, more rapid. Now let's add a column where we have some commonly used descriptors for intensity regions or zones based on percentage of functional threshold power, FTP. Most often, FTP is used synonymously with LT2. It's probably better to define it as the power associated with a maximal lactate steady state, or MLSS. Next, we can add in RPE using a 10-point effort scale. RPE's well-validated effort model that, in my opinion, is one that should be used by all athletes to some degree. Understanding your perceived exertion in relation to your output lets you manage a day when your technology isn't working, or maybe on a day where you're having a faster or slower pace than normal. You manage your effort and work your effort first. As we continue to lay in other models, we can look at that breath and talk model, bring in a heart rate model that's based off percentage of max heart rate, and then a 3-zone and a 5-zone model as well. When we look at all these models and how they overlap with substrate utilization and lactate thresholds, that's when we can start to have meaningful conversations about what you're exposing your body to, for how long, and how that will lead to the changes and adaptations you're seeking, as well as guide your race performances. Know your zones, know how they reflect what's going on under the skin, and you'll know how to prepare yourself for where to go. And I hope that helps as you get into this season of more defined training.